Hi, I'm Lisa Bardot, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to create your own custom brushes in Procreate. And we're going to be using those brushes to create this beautiful galaxy illustration. While creating brushes in Procreate can get a little bit complicated, it's not hard to get started and create amazing brushes that can do some really cool effects. And that's what I'm going to be showing you how to do today. I'll show you how to create 3 different Procreate brushes, including one that has some really cool color and lighting effects. If you're new to Procreate, I recommend watching my Procreate for Beginners tutorial to learn all the basics. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of my future tutorials. Let's get started. We're going to be creating some galaxy art today, and it's actually going to be a lot easier than you think thanks to some built-in Procreate brushes that you already have on your iPad. And we're going to be adding to that with our own custom brushes that I'm going to walk you through making that have some really cool lighting effects. So we'll begin by starting our galaxy art, and then we'll jump into brush making. So let's first create a new canvas. I'm going to tap the plus sign in the upper right, and the size I'm going to be using today is 3800 by 2800 pixels. This is a size I use all the time, so I have a canvas template made for that. Then I'm going to go up to the layers panel and I'm going to start by changing the background color. So I'll tap background color, and the color of the background I'm going to choose is kind of like a deep blue. So kind of like that. Not completely dark, but pretty dark. And then I'm going to go over to my brushes, and I'm actually going to go into the built-in Procreate brush set called Luminance. And the brush I'm going to use is at the bottom here. It's called Nebula. And this brush has some really cool lighting and color effects that you're going to see in just a sec. I'm going to go over to my colors, and the color I'm going to choose is kind of between this like bluey purple and magenta. So it's this like purple color, and then make sure I'm choosing like a very saturated version of that color. And now I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so I can get all the edges. And if I go across the screen, you'll see that there's some like different colors happening. There's some blues and pinks, and this brush is really, really cool like that. If I go over it a second time, it will get brighter. Probably don't want it to get too bright, but in certain spots it's okay. And I can actually choose maybe a different color like a blue and kind of incorporate some blue spots over there. I want to leave some of the dark space, so I don't want to go too crazy with the nebula effect. I want to leave some background. But I think that's a good jumping off point. So now I want to add some stars. And if I go into my brushes, there is this brush called Glimmer. And if I use that, it's stars, but it's not quite the look that I want. They're a little too soft and way too close together. So I'm just going to go ahead and create my own custom brush so I can get the exact star that I want. So let me undo that. And let's actually go ahead and exit back out to gallery view so we can make our own brush. We're going to create a new canvas to make our brush shape. So I'm going to tap the plus sign, and I'll tap this little rectangle here in the upper right. And I'm going to make a canvas that is 2500 by 2500 pixels. And I'm just going to call this one brushes and hit create. So now I've got a square canvas, which is what it needs to be in order to create a brush. The first thing I'm going to do is set the background color to black. So I'll go up to my layers, background color, and then I will double tap to get a pure black value. So if I double tap close to black, it's going to snap, or you can check a value here and make sure that I'm going to actually turn the color all the way down. So saturation's down, brightness is down. So there's no color at all. We want it to be completely black. And then we're going to go up to our brushes panel, and I'm going to go into the drawing set. And the brush I'm going to be using is called Oberon. It's got some nice texture. I really like the effect that it has. So let's go ahead and choose Oberon. And the first thing I want to do is just to make like a glowing circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a circle in the middle of my canvas, kind of like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm actually going to use Gaussian blur to blur it out to make it glow. So there's my circle. I'm going to go up to the adjustments menu, Gaussian blur, and then I'm going to tap layer. And then if I slide my pencil across the screen, you can see that it blurs out. So we want it to be nice and soft. I'm at about 68%. And then I'm going to go over to my layers again, and I'm going to create a new layer. And I want to have more of like a concentrated bright spot in the middle. So I'm going to repeat that process. I'm going to go ahead and draw another circle. It's a little smaller, kind of like that. And then I'm going to go over to Adjustments, Gaussian Blur, Layer, and I'll blur it out a little bit less. So I'm at like 23% now. So you can see I have like a concentrated bright spot in the middle. And then I want to create some kind of like glowing lines coming out, like a shining star. So I'm going to tap the Layers panel and create another new layer. So now I'll go ahead and draw some lines going through the center like that. And the motion that I'm doing is light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. So I get these nice tapered ends with, you can see the texture fall off. So I'll do that one more time, maybe a little bit bigger with my brush size. There we go. And we'll do one horizontally, kind of like that. And then a couple more intersecting those lines like that. And the last thing I'll do is add some glow to these lines I just drew. So I'll go up to my layers, swipe to the left, choose duplicate. And then I'll go over to Adjustments, Gaussian Blur, Layer, and just kind of blur that a little bit. So it has kind of this glowing effect. I'm at about 12%. All right. So now we're ready to turn this shape we just drew into a brush. First thing I'm going to do is just select all of these layers and just center it in the middle here. There we go. Okay. So we're going to copy this. We'll take 3 fingers and swipe down on the canvas. You're going to choose Copy All. That's going to copy all the visible layers. And then we're going to go into our brushes. And you're going to go all the way to the top. And if you swipe down, you'll see this blue plus sign. And that's to create a new brush set. So let's go ahead and tap that. And we'll call this Stars. And hit Return. And then tap the plus sign here to create a new brush. So here you can see we've entered the Brush Studio, and this contains all the settings you need to make whatever brush your heart desires. And just so you know how brushes work in Procreate, each brush takes a shape and a texture and a whole bunch of different combinations of these settings to create whatever effect you want to make. So let's go ahead and put the shape we just made into this brush. We're going to go down here to where it says Shape, and you can see this brush is made up of this circle shape. Let's go ahead and change that. We're going to tap Edit and then Import and then Paste. And it's going to paste in the shape that we had copied. And there you can see it. So go ahead and hit Done. And you can see that the brush changed here. You can actually draw with it in here to see what it looks like, which doesn't look like much right now. We have to adjust the settings to make the star brush that we want. So let's begin by going to Stroke Path. That's the top option here. And we'll start with this setting. So if we slide that over, you can see now that you can see the individual stars on this brush. And that's how a brush works. It's actually just a bunch of these shapes layered on top of each other, sometimes spread out, sometimes not, to create a brush. So I'm going to go ahead and spread that out. I've got it to like 90% because I want to make this kind of like scattered star effect. And then I'm going to go over here where it says Jitter. And if we turn up Jitter, you can see that everything kind of just spreads out randomly. So it kind of makes everything irregular and spread out. So that's what I want for this brush. And next I'm going to go back to Shape over here. And Scatter is another setting. This will rotate the actual like individual stamps. But I actually want it off because I want them all the same orientation. But I do want to edit Count. And Count just adds more iterations of each stamp. So if you turn it way up, it's like tons. But let's go down. I think I only want it to be at like 2. And then the last thing that I'm going to edit on this brush is down here under Dynamics. And here under Jitter, there's this size slider. So if I slide that over, you'll see now that some are big, some are small. So that kind of varies the size of your stamp of your brush. So I don't think I want it all the way up. I'm at about like 75%. And then finally, you can go down to properties and you can change the maximum size. So if you wanted it to be able to be bigger, you can move that up. So I'll set it to about 200%. And that looks good for now. Let's go ahead and hit done. And there you can see our brush. And it's untitled, but we'll make sure to name our brushes at the end. So let's go back to our galaxy art and we'll start putting in some stars. So I'm going to go ahead and tap Gallery and open up my nebula. Then I'll go to Layers and I will tap the plus sign to create a new layer. All right, so now we've got our brush selected here. So let's try it out, see what it looks like. All right, so we've got some stars. They look pretty good. I'm going to reduce the size of the brush and just see what that looks like so we can get some different sizes. I think those look really nice, but I would like some stars that are not this shape, like with the, shine lines, just maybe some little dots. So let's make that next. Let's go back to the gallery and we're going to open that file back up that we used to make our brush. And I'm going to go to my layers and I'm just going to turn off these two layers. So now I just have the glowing dot. I'm going to swipe down with 3 fingers again and I'm going to choose copy all. And instead of creating a new brush from scratch, I'm just going to swipe to the left and choose duplicate. And now I can just edit that same brush. So let me open it up. We'll go over to shape. We'll go to edit, import, paste. And now it's just a glowing dot. So let's hit done. And you can see what that looks like. I'm going to go over here and maybe reduce the spacing a little bit. I don't know how spread apart I want them to be with the jitter, but let's try that and see what that looks like. So I'm going to hit done and we'll go back to our nebula art. Open that back up and ooh, I think that looks really cool. I'm going to reduce the size of the brush so these can be far away stars. Oh, that looks really awesome. You can do some bigger. Let me see. I think having a few bigger ones in there is really cool too. So you can have as many stars as you want. Now, if I want to make these stars really look like they're glowing in relation to the background, I can add a blend mode to this layer of stars. So I'm going to go up to my layers. I'm going to tap the little N right here, and this is going to bring up all our different blend modes. And blend modes just dictate how one layer interacts with all the layers below it. And there's lots of different options. I suggest scrolling through and seeing what they do because they'll change on the fly. But I'm going to choose this one called add. And you can see already that there's normal and there's add. And let's see if I undo, redo. You can see it glows more. It also, you get a little bit more color. It interacts with the color of the layer below it. So add is a really fun blend mode, especially for doing things like stars. It's getting a little bright right here, but that's all right. Look at how cool these glow over here. It's awesome. So the last thing I want to do is to add some really fun colored glowing stars, some individual, really bright, fun ones. So let's go ahead and create one last brush. I'm going to go up to my brushes and I'm actually going to start with this first one that we made because I want this to have the glowing shiny lines. So I'm going to swipe to the left and choose duplicate. And then I'm going to open that new version of the brush. And for this one, I just want to make a stamp brush where I can just make one star. So I'm going to turn the spacing all the way up and I'm going to turn the jitter all the way down. And so now that makes it really easy for me to just stamp a star there. And I also want this brush to have more of a glowing effect itself. So let me show you how to do that. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my properties and I'm going to change the size, the maximum size to be bigger, like that. And then I'm going to go to my rendering settings right here. I'm going to change it to intense blending. These are a little complicated to explain, but trust me on this one. We're going to go to intense blending. And then for the blend mode of the brush, we're going to change that. So we're going to actually choose, you could probably guess, we're going to choose the add blend mode because it has that glowy effect. You can't really see what it looks like here in the preview, but if I go up here to drawing pad, I can actually change the color of the preview. And there we go. You can see that. If I change it back to normal, you can see, you know, how it looks. It doesn't glow. There we go. Now it does glow. So that looks awesome. But I want to intensify the glow of this star. So I'm going to go over to shape, and remember count. I'm going to increase that. And the more that I increase that, you can see how like the glow gets brighter because the count setting adds more iterations of that stamp. And since I don't have like jitter turned on, they're all stacked on top of each other. So that add blend mode is adding and making it brighter and brighter. And so you get this cool effect where it's like glowing in the middle and then it kind of fades off along the edges. It's really, really cool. So let's try that out on our piece. I'm gonna go ahead and tap done. And I'm gonna go to my layers and create a new layer for these. And I'm going to choose a color now. Choose like an orange maybe. So I'm just like doing a really saturated orange. And we'll see how this looks. Wow, it is like crazy intense. But you can see how it like fades off on the edges like that. Now it looks a little awkward because it's like so saturated. So I'm going to change the blend mode of this layer as well. So that way this new star I just drew interacts with the nebula, you know, colors. So I'm going to go over here to the N and I'm going to go to add. And that looks awesome. It's glowing, it's working with the colors underneath it, and it just looks really, really cool. I can choose a different color. Maybe we'll do like a pink, do a really big one. Ooh, that one's really big. If I actually like tap right in the same exact spot a few times, it's gonna keep adding and keep brightening every time I put it down. So you can see that I'll do that a few times and it just keeps getting brighter and brighter. This is getting really crazy now, but I'm just doing it to show you, you know, what you can do. Make it a little bit smaller. So here's a blue one, put one over there. So it's just so fun. I think it's really, really a cool effect. Maybe we'll do, I don't know, you can experiment with colors and see what different colors do. See what happens when you choose a darker color. Probably won't get as bright as fast. But you can create some really awesome effects with not a lot of effort when you can create brushes that kind of do that work for you. So now with everything we've learned and with our new custom brushes, let's go ahead and create a new galaxy art from scratch. I'm gonna go ahead and go to gallery. I'm gonna create a new canvas. I'm gonna use that same size, 3800 by 2800 pixels. I'm gonna change the background color to a nice deep blue, like that. And then I'm going to grab the Nebula brush from the Luminance Set and a nice purpley color. And I'll just add in some cool nebula shapes. Maybe I'll get a blue color, incorporate that in there. Have some brighter spots down here. I think that looks great. I'll create a new layer and let's go to our custom brushes here. And I'll start with my just dot stars and I'll do a white. And just kind of draw a few in, make a smaller brush size. And draw those in wherever I think they need to be. Do different sizes. It's turning out beautiful. I'm going to change the blend mode of that to add so that they interact with my background a little bit more. I'll create another layer for my really bright, colorful stars and change that blend mode to add as well. And I'll choose that cool glowy star and do like an orange. Just add in a few of those. If I want to make it brighter, I could just tap on it a couple times. Maybe do a different color. I'll get like blue. Try that. So fun. So as you can see, thanks to the awesomeness of custom brushes, it did not take us long at all to create something truly amazing. That is the beauty of making your own brushes, is you can really create something that is your own and make your tools work for you instead of like having to draw all these stars like a million times. you can make a brush that does that. So brushes are awesome. I love making brushes. Obviously, I've been making brushes for many, many years. I sell my own brush sets. I have learned so much about the brush settings that I can do pretty much whatever I think of. I can probably make a brush to do it, but I love making brushes. It's really, really fun. One more thing we forgot to do, of course, is to name our brushes. So let's do that. I'm gonna open up my dot stars. I'm gonna go down here to about this brush, and let's call this one, we'll just call it dot stars. And then of course you can put in your name because you made this brush. Sign your little signature there. You can even put a picture in there if you want. And if you tap here where it says create new reset point and save, if you ever make changes to this brushes, you can always revert back to this point, which is amazing. So let me name my other two brushes. So here is your own brush set with your custom star brushes. You can obviously use other shapes to make other types of brushes, and I would just recommend going through and experimenting with the brush settings and seeing what each of them do. Procreate actually has a really amazing handbook on their website, which teaches you all about the program and goes into detail about what all the different brush studio settings do. If you want to learn more, I highly recommend checking it out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you're excited about experimenting and making your own brushes. Again, I'm Lisa Bardot and I help people find their creativity through drawing on the iPad. If you'd like to support me, I hope you'll check out my premium brush sets that inspire creativity at bardotbrush.com. And if you're sharing your work to Instagram, I would love to see it. Use the hashtag #BardotBrush. Thanks and happy art making! If you like this video, please subscribe for more awesome tutorials and check out one of my other videos. Have a great day!